Millionaire CEO stumbles upon a lost little girl in his luxury hotel, only to realize a shocking truth. She's the daughter he never knew existed. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. A soft rain drizzled over the city's skyline, creating a glistening tapestry of reflected lights in every window of the Grand Luxor Hotel. Its newest owner, the illustrious millionaire CEO Sebastian Lockhart, gazed out from the top-floor suite. Tall, composed, and carrying himself with a regal air, Sebastian was used to controlling every facet of his empire. His presence alone, sharp gray suit, polished shoes, and the faintest hint of cologne, commanded unwavering respect wherever he went. Yet on that quiet evening, a subtle sense of disquiet tugged at him. He couldn't explain why his thoughts were so restless. Downstairs, a late-night charity event he sponsored was winding down, the red carpets already being rolled up and the last of the guests bidding each other good night. Normally, Sebastian preferred to oversee every detail of such gatherings. Public relations was part of his success. But something had compelled him to retreat early to his private suite. Through the thick glass, he saw the reflection of a confident man who had achieved enough to turn the once deteriorating Grand Luxor into a five-star wonder. But behind that reflection, a premonition he couldn't name stirred in his chest. In the luxurious lobby, now almost empty, a small girl quietly slipped in unnoticed. Her clothes were soaked from the rain, and her tiny backpack was clutched to her chest like a shield. Amelia, 8 years old, trembled as she stepped onto the pristine marble floors. She looked so out of place in that grand setting. A solitary bellhop yawning behind the reception desk didn't see her right away. By the time he noticed the drenched silhouette, the little girl had already taken cautious steps deeper into the lobby, eyes wide at the sparkling chandeliers above. "Miss, are you lost?" the bellhop asked gently. Amelia froze, hugging her backpack even tighter, as if fearing the slightest movement might reveal secrets hidden in her trembling heart. Her lower lip quivered, but she said nothing. The bellhop, sensing her panic, tried to calm her. "It's all right, dear. Did you lose your parents? I can help." His voice echoed through the empty hall, but Amelia couldn't find the courage to answer. Thunder rumbled from somewhere outside, sending a shiver through her small body. At that very moment, in the top-floor suite, Sebastian Lockhart felt an odd jolt, like a single lightning flash in his mind. He left his reflection in the window and took the elevator down, still uncertain why he suddenly needed to return to the lobby. As the elevator descended, he stared at his own reflection in the polished metal doors. He was used to rational decision-making, building entire corporations with his unstoppable drive. But that night, his instincts nudged him somewhere unfamiliar. When the elevator doors opened, Sebastian found a quiet hush in the foyer. The once bustling crowd from the charity event had vanished, replaced by a solemn emptiness. Only the soft piano music playing through overhead speakers remained. He glanced toward the central lobby and saw his bellhop kneeling next to a small child, a child who looked completely displaced in that world of sophistication and wealth. She was trembling and silent, water dripping from her hair onto the glossy floor. Sebastian's steps echoed with precision, polished shoes tapping out a rhythm that caught Amelia's attention. She turned, startled. For a brief moment, the girl's brown eyes locked onto his. In that gaze, he felt something inexplicably personal, almost like a mirror to a part of himself he'd never seen. He paused, unsettled by the strange wave of emotion rising inside him. "Sir, I think she's lost. She won't speak," the bellhop explained. Sebastian slowly crouched down, ignoring that the move would wrinkle his perfectly tailored slacks. "Hello," he said, voice unusually soft. "It's all right. We just want to help you." Amelia took a slow step backward, glancing toward the glass doors and the dark rain beyond them. She was weighing whether to run again, But the deep concern in Sebastian's gaze made her hesitate. After a few heartbeats, she exhaled. I'm looking for someone," she whispered, each word trembling. Before she could say more, thunder boomed again, rattling the windows and making her shrink in fear. She clung to Sebastian's offered hand as if it were the only thread keeping her anchored. In the hush of that moment, an older woman, Ms. Beaumont, who managed the front desk, stepped forward. "Poor dear, she's shivering," Ms. Beaumont said, draping a small towel over Amelia's shoulders. "Let's get you something warm to drink, sweetheart." The child's eyes glistened with gratitude. She nodded, let Ms. Beaumont lead her toward the private lounge off to one side of the lobby and perched on the edge of a luxurious armchair, the softness of the cushion a world away from the harsh streets she'd just fled. Sebastian quietly followed, half listening as Ms. Beaumont tried to coax more words from Amelia. He never prided himself on gentle nurturing. He was the man with unstoppable ambition, not a caretaker. Yet Amelia's vulnerability pulled him in like an unseen magnet. He studied her face, the delicate shape of her features. A twinge of recognition flickered across his heart, though he couldn't place why. "Are your parents missing, little one?" Ms. Beaumont asked softly. Amelia's lower lip quivered again. She shook her head, hugging that worn backpack. "I've never met my dad," she managed at last, eyes brimming with unshed tears. The hush in the lounge thickened, each adult feeling the weight of that confession. Something in her words resonated inside Sebastian, like a chord struck in an old piano string he never realized was there. He cleared his throat. "What's your name?" "Amelia," she replied, so quietly it was almost a whisper. "Amelia," he repeated as though tasting the name on his tongue. "We'll help you find who you're looking for." She looked up, uncertain. "Promise?" That single word nearly broke Sebastian's composure. He'd made countless promises in boardrooms, to shareholders, to investors, but this little girl's eyes demanded a sincerity far greater than any business deal. He nodded. "Yes, I promise." As Ms. Beaumont hurried off to fetch hot chocolate, Sebastian sank onto a nearby seat, glancing at the clock. It was after midnight. The entire day had been a whirlwind, from the high-profile charity gala to this inexplicable meeting with a frightened child. He wondered about the mother, or whoever else might be searching for Amelia, but the innocence in her expression told him she was alone, truly alone. Lightning illuminated the windows again. A memory flickered in Sebastian's mind, images of his own childhood, years that he'd buried under success and relentless ambition. He'd grown up in wealth, but it had never warmed his childhood the way genuine love might have. He saw glimpses of the lonely hours, tutors and nannies, but never real familial closeness. And that single memory, rising from the depths, made him want to protect this child, even though he scarcely understood why. Amelia, perhaps feeling safe for the first time that day, nestled into the chair, letting the towel soak up the raindrops in her hair. She carefully placed her backpack on her lap. It looked old, with patches that had been lovingly sewn on to cover tears in the fabric. Sebastian's eyes caught the faint lettering scrawled along one of the straps. "Mom." A pang of empathy coursed through him. The child must have a mother somewhere. As if reading his mind, Amelia whispered, "My mother. She said we'd find my dad here. She told me to wait in the lobby. But then she was gone." Her voice cracked at that last word. Sebastian inhaled, controlling the sudden tightness in his chest. "Gone? Did something happen?" he asked, voice hushed. Amelia gripped the backpack with trembling fingers. For a second, Sebastian feared she might slip back into silence. Then, eyes wide, she nodded. "They took her away. She told me to run, that my dad, was in this hotel, but I don't know his name." A quiet shock rippled through the room. Ms. Beaumont set down the cup of hot chocolate gently on the side table. her trembling hand betraying her compassion for the little girl's plight. Sebastian's mind whirred with possibilities. Could it be a domestic dispute? Human trafficking? His protective instincts roared to life, stronger than any corporate ambition. He turned to Ms. Beaumont. "We'll have the hotel's security check every camera. We need to see who came in with Amelia's mother and who took her away." Amelia gulped the warm drink, still shivering, though it was hard to say whether it was from the cold or from fear. Sebastian took out his phone and called his head of security. "I need you to run a thorough check on all footage from the last few hours," he ordered. "We have a missing woman, blonde, early 30s maybe. She may have come with a child." He paused, glancing at Amelia. "Also see if there was any suspicious individual or group leaving the premises quickly around the same time." While Sebastian orchestrated the search, Ms. Beaumont tried to settle Amelia. The child stared at the reflection of the overhead chandelier in her cup, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. A swirl of dread and hope coexisted in that single droplet as she realized that the path she was on could lead to her mother or to a dead end. And overshadowing it all was the question that roiled in Sebastian's mind, though he hardly dared to give it voice. Why did she say her father was here? And how could she be so certain? Outside, the storm intensified, as if the heavens themselves were echoing the tension inside. The Grand Luxor's tall silhouette glowed against the tumultuous sky. Within it, a child's desperate search for her missing mother was about to intersect with a man whose secrets he didn't even know he had. And from somewhere in the swirl of possibilities, a single piece of truth was ready to shatter everything Sebastian Lockhart believed about his carefully controlled life. A tense hush spread through the Grand Luxor's private lounge, where Amelia sat bundled in a plush armchair. Each crack of thunder outside seemed to echo through the empty corridors, reminding everyone of how precarious the situation was. Ms. Beaumont offered the little girl another comforting smile, though beneath her calm exterior, she too felt the undercurrent of urgency. The mother's disappearance weighed on them like a haunting presence. Over the phone, Sebastian Lockhart spoke in low, commanding tones to his head of security. "I don't care if you have to spend all night, Carl. Review every second of surveillance footage. Someone took that woman away in or around this hotel, and I want to know who. And if there's any sign that the child arrived with another adult, check that as well." He paused, glancing at Amelia, who blinked at him with those solemn brown eyes. "Yes, that's correct. A little girl. She's about 8 years old, possibly arrived half an hour before the storm started. I want answers." Hanging up, Sebastian forced down a swell of emotion. He was not a man used to feeling helpless. He'd built an empire from the ground up, controlling every variable with ruthless efficiency. Yet, at that moment, everything felt uncertain. Amelia reminded him too much of the child he once was, left alone in silent mansions, starved for genuine warmth. "It's going to be okay," he found himself saying, crossing the lounge to kneel beside the armchair. He brushed a damp strand of hair back from Amelia's forehead. She sniffled, silent tears reflecting her fear. "Let's wait for the security team to get back to us. Then we'll figure out where your mom is. In the meantime, we can get you some dry clothes, all right?" Amelia's fingers dug into the tattered backpack straps. She nodded, but her shoulders remained tense, as though bracing for another scare. Not wanting to push her, Sebastian rose. Ms. Beaumont quietly gestured him closer, out of Amelia's earshot. "Sir," she whispered, "the poor thing has been soaked to the bone. If we have some children's clothes in the lost and found storage, maybe we can—" "Yes, of course," Sebastian agreed. "Prepare a suite on one of the quieter floors. I'll cover every expense for her stay until we know what's going on." A twinge in his chest told him he couldn't just label this as professional courtesy. He needed to protect her. But why this relentless sense of responsibility? Shaking away the thought, he pressed forward. He turned to Amelia, forcing a gentle tone. "We're going to find you a room where you can warm up. Ms. Beaumont will bring you something to wear." She gazed up at him, her eyes misty but with a flicker of trust beginning to form. Carefully, Sebastian lifted her in his arms, ignoring how out of character it felt to hold a child so close. The faint smell of rain clung to her hair. They stepped into a nearby elevator. Amelia looked around at the mirrored walls and, for a moment, her reflection multiplied. A small figure wrapped in a man's arms. "Thank you," she murmured, almost imperceptibly. Sebastian's heart clenched. "You're safe here," he promised. The elevator chimed on a high floor. He'd chosen a suite that was vacant after the night's events. As they exited, Ms. Beaumont hurried ahead, unlocking the door. The suite was smaller than Sebastian's personal quarters but still impeccably furnished. A large window showcased the city lights, and the hush from outside made the space feel cocooned from the storms of the world. Amelia looked around, wide-eyed, half in awe, half in residual fear that any moment something else might go wrong. "Would you like a hot shower?" Ms. Beaumont offered kindly. "I'll put some fresh clothes right outside the bathroom door for you, dear." Clinging to her backpack, Amelia hesitated, uncertain if she could part with it. She finally set it on a nearby chair, but not before unzipping it briefly and peering inside. Whatever it contained seemed to be her most precious possession. Ms. Beaumont bustled away, leaving the two alone. Without the constant swirl of activity from the lobby, the hush felt heavier. The overhead lights cast a warm glow on the patterned carpets. Sebastian found himself studying Amelia's features. She was all angles, delicate chin, wide eyes, slight frame. There was nothing in her that visually linked to him, yet the gravity in his chest told a different story. He was protective, beyond reason. "How long have you been in the city, Amelia?" he ventured gently, not wanting to scare her off with too many questions at once. She bit her lip. I'm not sure. A few days, maybe. We traveled by bus." She paused, uncertain whether she should say more. "Mom said we had to find him quickly, or—" Her voice trailed off, trembling. "I'm sorry. I'm not sure where they took her." Sebastian swallowed. Her confusion, her tears, everything about her vulnerability called out to his rarely touched compassion. "It's all right," he said softly. "We'll keep looking." He wanted to add that he would never let anything happen to her, that no matter what, he'd stay by her side, but such declarations would be reckless. He barely knew this child. And yet, some deep part of him insisted, protect her. Ms. Beaumont returned with a neat stack of children's clothes, a simple t-shirt, soft pants, a pair of pink socks. They were left behind a week ago by another guest. "This should fit," she said reassuringly. Amelia gave a tiny nod, took the clothes, and disappeared into the bathroom. The door clicked shut, followed by the muffled sound of running water. Sebastian released a low breath, shoulders sagging as tension slipped out in a silent wave. He turned to Ms. Beaumont. "Thank you for all this. Please keep it discreet. For now, I only want a few staff members knowing about Amelia." Ms. Beaumont gave him a concerned look. "Sir, the hotel guests might ask questions. A child wandering in, and the mother, someone must have seen her." He nodded. "I'll handle it. Right now, we just have to keep the little girl safe, and no one in the press should catch wind of this. Understand? I don't want the tabloids to spin some narrative. She's not a story, she's a kid." The older woman's eyes softened. "Yes, sir. Understood." A faint beep on Sebastian's phone cut through the quiet. He fished it out of his pocket and saw a text from Carl, the head of security. "Found something. A suspicious figure escorting a woman out the side entrance around 11 p.m. Footage unclear. We'll keep digging." Sebastian tapped out a quick reply. "We need a clearer image," checking for any other cameras. Then, ignoring his usual calm, he left Ms. Beaumont behind and marched into the hallway, phone pressed to his ear as he called security directly. "Carl, detail the suspicious figure," he demanded. "Male? Female? What's the approximate build? Male, tall, wearing a hoodie. Cameras didn't get a good angle, but the woman seemed reluctant, borderline forced. She's blonde, maybe in her 30s, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. That matches the rough description from Ms. Beaumont's conversation with the girl. Sebastian's jaw tensed. You're sure? 80%. We never saw the woman's face in full. The man took her through the service hallway near the kitchen loading dock. From there, they vanish into a blind spot. We have partial license plates on a van leaving the alley around that time. I'm cross-checking now. Sebastian breathed in a slow, measured way, forcing calm. Keep me updated by the minute, and discreetly. The last thing I want is a media circus. He ended the call, returning to the suite just as the bathroom door cracked open. Amelia emerged wearing the borrowed clothes, hair damp but no longer dripping. Her eyes flicked around the space. Is my mom really in this hotel? She asked, hope warring with uncertainty. Sebastian hesitated, torn between truth and comfort. We don't know yet, he answered carefully. We're trying to see if she was taken outside the building. Amelia's face fell. But my security team is on it, and they're some of the best. We'll find her, okay? The child slowly walked over to the chair where her precious backpack waited. From it, she pulled out a folded photograph. She hugged it to her chest before extending it to Sebastian. In the picture, a younger version of Amelia's mother was smiling, hugging a toddler Amelia. But in the background, just visible over their shoulders, was a man's figure, turned away from the camera, his face partially out of frame. It was impossible to identify him. Even so, the presence felt oddly familiar, sending a chill up Sebastian's spine. Mom said, "That's him," Amelia whispered, voice trembling with longing and fear. She always told me that's my dad, that he's here, or I'd find him here. She looked straight into Sebastian's eyes, as though searching for an answer he wasn't sure he possessed. His heart knocked against his ribcage. The shape in the photo, the man's suit and posture. It looked reminiscent of the formal corporate style Sebastian had worn for as long as he could remember. But how many men wore tailored suits? It could be anyone, he reasoned. Yet, the deeper he looked, the more a flicker of recognition gnawed at him. A memory from years ago, half forgotten. Or was he imagining it because the child's plight touched him so deeply? He carefully gave the photograph back to Amelia. "I promise," he said, voice steady. "We'll figure this out together." At that, Amelia's lower lip quivered. She threw her small arms around his waist, burying her face against him. Instinctively, Sebastian folded his arms around her, gently cradling her head. That single gesture felt like the most human thing he'd done in years, more genuine than any business handshake or glamorous public event. Behind them, Ms. Beaumont quietly stepped back, blinking away tears of her own. She'd worked for Sebastian for a decade, watched him negotiate the purchase of entire companies without batting an eyelash. Never had she seen him so raw, so open. Lightning flashed again, but the thunder was more distant now. The night was waning, the worst of the storm passing overhead. Still, the storm inside Sebastian was only beginning. For the first time, he was faced with questions he couldn't simply negotiate out of or bury under money. Who was Amelia's father, truly? And why did that phantom figure in the photograph tug at his memory with such force? Just as Sebastian tried to calm his roiling thoughts, his phone buzzed again. Another text from Carl. "License plate partial match to out-of-state rental. Checking more leads." Sebastian exhaled. The mother had likely been forced into a van. The child was searching for a father she had never met, one who was rumored to be right here at the Grand Luxor. How many secrets were hidden in that snapshot? How many were on the verge of unraveling Sebastian's entire life? In the hush of that lavish suite, with Amelia softly breathing against him, Sebastian Lockhart made a silent vow. He would protect this girl with every resource he had. If the flicker of recognition in her photograph turned out to be more than coincidence, if, by some impossible twist of fate, he was that father, he would have to confront a past he never knew was waiting for him, a past that might lead to the truth or plunge them all into greater danger. A thin layer of daylight filtered through the hotel suite's heavy curtains, marking the arrival of morning. Amelia was still asleep, curled up on the sofa with a spare blanket Sebastian had draped over her sometime during the early hours. Seated at the small dining table, Sebastian Lockhart pored over security reports that had accumulated overnight, his eyes gritty from lack of sleep. At the very top of the pile lay a thin dossier about the partial license plate discovered in the alleyway. Several unknown lines of inquiry, partially explored, stared back at him like unanswered questions. He glanced toward Amelia, her chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. Softly, he rose from his seat and padded across the suite on quiet footsteps, not wanting to wake her. In the hours since she'd shown up, he'd watched her drift between moments of trembling fear and a childlike hope. It stirred a fierce protectiveness in him. His phone vibrated, shattering the brief calm. "Yes?" he said quietly, stepping into the hallway to avoid disturbing her. "It's Carl," said the head of security. His voice was a mix of urgency and regret. "We checked the rental van angle. The plate leads us to a shell company, no real name behind it. We traced the contract to another shell, so it's a dead end so far." Sebastian clenched his jaw. "There has to be something we can work with. CCTV from any traffic lights near the hotel? Street cams further down the block?" "We're trying. We have a faint glimpse of the van turning onto a side road, but it disappears right after." A harsh sigh escaped him. "Carl, this is critical. A woman was taken against her will. Amelia's mother, presumably. Keep pressing. If the van took her, it must have gone somewhere. Someone must have seen it." "Yes, sir. We won't give up." Carl paused. "And about the child's father? I've got a man from the HR department discreetly checking if any of our employees recognize the woman. Or maybe she visited the hotel before. So far, no hits." Sebastian thanked Carl and hung up. A quiet frustration roiled inside him. He was used to outmaneuvering obstacles with sheer will, turning negotiations around in his favor. But here he was, with only vague security footage and a terrified child, and looming behind all that was the baffling possibility that he himself might be involved in a way he never foresaw. Returning to the suite, he found Amelia sitting upright, blinking away sleep. Her small hands clutched the edges of the blanket. "You're awake," Sebastian greeted softly. He knelt down so they were at eye level. "Are you hungry? We can have breakfast sent up." Amelia nodded shyly. Her gaze drifted around the posh room, as if remembering where she was and why. The memory of her missing mother dampened her expression. "Is there any news?" she asked, her voice a flutter of hope and fear. He considered sugarcoating the answer but decided on honesty. "Not yet. My security team is still looking. There was a van." He hesitated, then laid a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll keep searching, Amelia. I promise." She swallowed, eyes flickering with anxiety. "Okay," she whispered. Ms. Beaumont arrived at that moment with a hotel staff member behind her, rolling a small cart laden with toast, fruit, cereal, and a pot of hot chocolate. "Good morning," Ms. Beaumont said, offering Amelia a kind smile. "We thought you might like some breakfast." Her eyes lit up at the sight of the mini muffins and jam. Though sadness lingered, hunger was strong too. Sebastian helped her settle at the small table. He watched silently as Amelia nibbled on pieces of buttered toast and sipped warm cocoa. How easily children swung between worry and a simple delight in small comforts. For him, it underscored the urgency to bring her mother back safely, and to uncover the truth behind the father she'd come to find. Once Amelia had eaten her fill, Ms. Beaumont guided her gently toward the bedroom area. "Let's see if we can find more clothes for you, dear. Maybe we can tidy up that hair, too." When they were out of earshot, Sebastian grabbed his phone again and dialed one of the only lawyers he truly trusted, Mariana Gray, an old friend who specialized in corporate law but had a heart for personal cases too. "I need your help," he said once she picked up. "This is delicate. A child arrived last night at my hotel looking for her mother, and possibly her father. The mother's gone missing under suspicious circumstances." Mariana's voice was steady, professional. "Is the child safe with you?" "Yes," Sebastian confirmed. "But I'm worried about what happens next. If the authorities get involved and question how or why I'm taking responsibility for her, I need to be sure we handle it correctly." Mariana paused. "We can't just hide this, Sebastian. You know that. If her mother truly was kidnapped, we need an official police report. The little girl's well-being is top priority. Have you alerted Child Protective Services?" Sebastian stiffened. "I don't want her lost in the system, not until we know the specifics. She told me she was brought here to find her father. Her mother implied that father is—" He exhaled, struggling with the words, "someone at my hotel." Mariana's thoughtful hum resonated over the line. "I'll look into it discreetly, but you have to consider the possibility that you'll need official channels soon. Meanwhile, keep everything above board. If there's any chance you might be the father—" "I know," Sebastian cut in, a flush creeping up his neck. "But it's too soon to say. I've never heard of her mother. I don't recall fathering a child, but there are things I can't explain." "All right," Mariana said calmly. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Give me any details you have. And Sebastian, be careful. If the mother was abducted, it could be tied to bigger trouble." They hung up after exchanging basic info. Sebastian steadied himself against the wall, mind churning. He needed to see if there was anything he'd overlooked in his past, some fleeting relationship or one-night fling. But his life had always been a polished script. So how did a possible daughter slip through the cracks? Ms. Beaumont reappeared, waving him closer. She had a look of tempered excitement. "Sir, the child—" She showed me something else from her backpack. A letter. She's not certain what it says. She can only read part of it. But it's handwritten by her mother. It mentions the name Lockhart. Clear as day. Everything froze. A cold ripple passed through Sebastian's veins. Lockhart was not a common name. She, Amelia's mother, knows me? The question trembled between them. Ms. Beaumont nodded, pressing her lips together worriedly. In the letter it says, "Lockhart is here," or something to that effect. Amelia's mother wrote about meeting you, or maybe finding you. The rest is damaged or smudged with water. I asked Amelia if I could show you, but she clammed up. I think she's afraid you'll be angry. His pulse thudded. He pinched the bridge of his nose, inhaling slowly. I'm not angry. Ms. Beaumont, can you encourage her to let me read it? If my name is in that letter, I need to see it. It could be crucial to figuring out what's going on. I'll try. The older woman paused, sincerity in her gaze. Sir, I know your private affairs are your own, but I've worked with you for years, and I've never known you to be reckless. If this child truly is— I know, Sebastian murmured again, cutting her off gently. We can't jump to conclusions, but thank you for your concern. She gave a small bow of her head and stepped away. Sebastian sank into one of the suite's chairs, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. He was the type to thrive in the eye of a storm, but this was different. This was personal, layered with emotional stakes he barely knew how to navigate. The identity of Amelia's father, the disappearance of her mother, and now a direct link to him through some mysterious letter. The puzzle pieces rattled in his mind, refusing to form a coherent picture. A knock at the door jolted him upright. He opened it to find Carl, his security chief, face taut with concern. Sir, I've got more news. None of it good. We recovered a partial number from the van's underside camera at the loading dock, traced it to a fake address across town, sent a team. The place is abandoned. Nobody there. It's as if they vanished. Sebastian's shoulders slumped. Any sign of the mother, or a clue about who's behind this? Carl shook his head. One odd detail. We found a stack of old photographs inside that property. Pictures of you. A chill coursed through him. Me? Yes, press clippings, some snapshots taken from a distance, and references to your acquisitions. The place looked like a small nest of whoever took Amelia's mother. We suspect they're targeting you or something related to you. Carl's voice softened. I don't want to alarm you, sir, but it's possible this entire thing is a plot to force your hand. Sebastian's mind spun. A kidnapping to manipulate him, or to draw him out. Then what role did Amelia's mother play in this? Was she an innocent bystander, or was there more to her story? Amelia's wide brown eyes flashed through his memory. The child had no clue how deep the dangers might run. Double the security around Amelia, he ordered, voice tight. I won't risk her safety. And keep searching. I want these people found. Carl nodded. And you, sir? Should we get you a protection detail? Sebastian hesitated. Always the confident CEO, he rarely stepped back from a fight. But with a child involved, everything changed. Yes, quietly. I don't need bodyguards standing at every hallway corner scaring the guests. But keep a close watch. When Carl left, the suite felt colder. Could Amelia's mother have known some dangerous individuals who recognized Sebastian as a target? Or had they used the mother's plight to lure Amelia here, specifically to get to him? The room swam with half-formed theories. At last, Ms. Beaumont emerged from the bedroom again, beckoning silently. Amelia trailed behind her, letter in hand. She looked anxious, as if she feared displeasing the only protector she had left in the world. It's okay, Sebastian said gently, dropping to one knee to face Amelia. I'm not upset with you. If that letter mentions me, I need to see it. It might help us find your mom. She nodded, swallowing hard, and extended the letter. Her small fingers trembled so much that the paper shook. I'm sorry, she whispered. Mom said I shouldn't show anyone, but Ms. Beaumont said you just want to help. I do. Carefully, Sebastian unfolded the letter. Parts of it were streaked with water damage, the ink blurred. But certain words jumped off the page. Grand Luxor. Find Lockhart. Said he never knew. Danger. Can't stay hidden. Must meet him. For Amelia. His breath caught at the sight of his name scrawled across the paper. The handwriting was rushed as though written in a panic. And that sentence, he never knew, felt like a sledgehammer to his chest. Never knew about a child or something else. Amelia hovered, tears filling her eyes again. Mom said, she told me we needed to see you because you'd keep us safe. She spoke the words like a confession, each syllable thick with longing. I think that means you really are my dad, doesn't it? Sebastian's heart thundered in his ears. He wanted to deny it outright, to reassure her that maybe it was a misunderstanding. But the letter, plus the old photograph, plus the mention of danger swirling around them, he couldn't just dismiss it as coincidence. With a trembling sigh, he set the letter aside and gently placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder. I don't know for sure, he said, voice tight with controlled emotion. But I promise you this. If there's any truth to what your mother wrote, we'll find out. I won't let anything happen to you, or to her. A tear slipped down Amelia's cheek. In an instant, Sebastian pulled her into a tender embrace. Ms. Beaumont stood by, discreetly wiping her own eyes. Outside, the sun had fully risen, shining against the Grand Luxor's glass exterior. Yet the building seemed fraught with unseen shadows. If someone had singled out Sebastian Lockhart as a target, using this child's mother to manipulate him, then all the power and wealth in the world might not be enough, not unless he uncovered the truth fast. As Amelia relaxed in his arms, one question resounded in Sebastian's mind. Had fate led her here because she truly was his hidden daughter, or was there a darker deception at play? One thing was certain: they couldn't face it alone. And while the mother's fate hung in the balance, the clock was ticking, each moment threatening to unravel everything. Sunlight beamed through the tall windows, filling the Grand Luxor's corridor with a brightness that clashed with the tension gripping Sebastian Lockhart's heart. He walked briskly beside Amelia, who clutched a small stuffed animal Ms. Beaumont had found in the hotel's lost and found bin. The child's steps were hesitant but determined, her expression lined with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Ms. Beaumont followed a few steps behind, frowning at the hush in the hallway. The staff, usually bustling at this hour, parted quietly, sensing the unusual atmosphere. Many recognized Sebastian, but none knew why he escorted a wide-eyed little girl. Rumors fluttered among the employees. Some guessed she was a distant relative, others whispered about some crisis. Yet Sebastian's stern focus discouraged questions. He guided Amelia toward a private elevator leading to the executive offices. "Why here?" she asked softly, hugging her stuffed bear as if it were her lifeline. He glanced down, meeting her gaze. "I want to make sure you're safe while we talk to a few people who might help. My suite upstairs is fine, but we have better security controls below, and I need access to our internal security center to keep track of any new leads on your mom." Amelia nodded, lips pressed together. She was trying her best to be brave. Ms. Beaumont gave her a small pat on the shoulder before pressing the elevator button. Moments later, they descended into one of the secured levels of the hotel, a place typically reserved for top management and sensitive business dealings. When the doors slid open, a heavy-set security guard greeted them, badge visible on his uniform. Sebastian thanked him quietly and proceeded down a short hallway to a frosted glass door. Beyond it lay a sprawling command center with rows of monitors, each showing camera feeds from various parts of the hotel, corridors, lobbies, the loading dock, and outside perimeters. The electronic hum of machinery filled the air. Carl, the head of security, approached, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Sir, we've been scanning through external street cams around the property. We caught a fleeting glimpse of the van about 4 blocks from here at approximately 11:12 p.m. last night. Then it disappears onto an underpass and we lose it. We're checking any traffic cameras from there forward, but it's going to take time." "Time," Sebastian echoed, exhaling. His gaze flicked to Amelia. She stood quietly at the threshold, eyes fixed on the wall of screens that showed an ever-shifting mosaic of hotel life. Carl cleared his throat. "We might have a lead on who's behind the shell company that rented the van. Some corporate alias that's come up in financial circles before. Possibly someone with a grudge, or looking to leverage you, sir. It could be business rivals, or—" "That's enough for now," Sebastian said quietly, shooting a sidelong glance at Amelia. "Let's handle the details later. Just keep me updated." He set a gentle hand on Amelia's shoulder, guiding her away from the bustle of the security hub. They slipped into a private conference room next door, plush chairs around a circular table, neutral-toned walls softened by abstract art. This room had seen countless high-stakes negotiations over corporate expansions, but never anything quite so personal as a missing mother and a possibly unknown daughter. Ms. Beaumont stationed herself discreetly near the door, offering watchful support. Amelia slid into one of the chairs, setting her teddy on the tabletop, the stuffed animal's worn fur showing signs of a life on the move. "You really own all this?" she asked, glancing around. Her voice carried an edge of disbelief, as if trying to reconcile the possibility that a man of such wealth might share her blood. Sebastian took a seat beside her, resisting the urge to pace. "I do," he answered. "Though it's not just me. There are many people who keep the place running. It's a lot of responsibility." She nodded, fiddling with the bear's ears. "Mom and I never stayed in one place too long," she admitted softly. "I used to wonder what it'd be like to, have a real home." Her words carved a dull ache in Sebastian's chest. He remembered his own lonely childhood drifting through silent mansions, yet it was worlds apart from what Amelia described. Constant movement, never belonging. A flicker of anger flared at whoever might have forced that life on her. Perhaps her mother had been on the run. But from whom? Or what? And why? Before he could speak, Mariana Gray stepped into the conference room. Tall, poised, and dressed in a crisp navy skirt suit, she was every inch the capable attorney. Her discerning eyes swept the scene, lingering on Amelia with a hint of compassion before settling on Sebastian. "Hello, Sebastian," she greeted, voice professional but warm. Then, focusing on Amelia, she bent at the knees to meet the girl at eye level. "Hi there. My name's Mariana. I'm a friend of Sebastian's. It's nice to meet you." Amelia offered a quiet hello, hugging her stuffed bear closer. Mariana smiled kindly, then straightened. "Should we talk privately?" she asked Sebastian, eyeing Ms. Beaumont. "Ms. Beaumont can stay. She's been helping Amelia," he replied. "Besides, Amelia deserves to hear what we discuss. It's about her, after all." Mariana nodded, taking a seat across the table. She smoothed her suit jacket. "I've looked into the procedural steps we might need to take. Legally, if the child's mother is truly missing, the authorities should be involved, particularly if it's abduction. That said, involving them also means Child Protective Services could step in. If you intend to protect Amelia personally, we have to be cautious. Otherwise, the system might remove her from your care." Amelia's eyes flicked nervously to Sebastian as if the mere idea of separation was terrifying. He gave her a reassuring nod. "Is there a way around that?" Mariana pursed her lips. "Only if you have legitimate grounds to claim guardianship. If you are indeed her father, that simplifies things, though you'd still need official recognition or at least a strong demonstration of paternity. Without that, the state typically intervenes." A heavy silence settled. Sebastian forced himself to ask the next question. "Let's say, hypothetically, that I might be her father. How soon could we find out?" "A standard paternity test could give preliminary results within a few days if we expedite it," Mariana replied. "A more thorough test can take a bit longer. In the meantime, if you truly believe the child is yours, it's best to keep her with you, under the radar, while we arrange everything quietly." At that, Amelia's voice wavered. "But what if you're not?" She glanced between them, her voice so small it nearly broke. The possibility had been hanging unspoken in the air all morning. Sebastian's features softened. He slid his chair closer, taking her hand. "We'll face that when we get there," he said gently, though inside, the notion that he might not be her father stirred conflicting emotions, relief, guilt, and an inexplicable sadness. "For now, we're doing everything we can to find your mom, and we'll also get answers for us." Mariana nodded, collecting her briefcase. "I've made arrangements for a fast-track test. I'll have a discreet medical professional come here. We can collect DNA samples, yours and Amelia's, by tonight if you agree. Results might be quick." Sebastian caught Amelia's eye. "Are you okay with that?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded. Her tiny fingers tightened around his. "I just want my mom back," she whispered. "If you're really my dad, that's good, right?" He felt his throat constrict. "We'll see," he managed. "But no matter what, I'm here for you. I won't let you be alone." Ms. Beaumont placed a gentle hand on Amelia's shoulder, trying to reassure. But the child looked so fragile. Sebastian was used to multi-million-dollar deals that demanded all his cunning, but never had he felt this kind of emotional weight. More than any corporate acquisition, more than the complexities of wealth, a little girl's safety and future now depended on him. As if sensing the tension, Mariana changed the subject. "We should also formalize the search for her mother, Sebastian. If you want, I can help file a missing persons report. We can keep it as low-key as possible, but it's a necessary step." He nodded. "Yes, let's do it." Quietly. We don't want the media to turn Amelia into a headline. The lawyer made a note on her phone. Understood. I'll coordinate with local authorities, off the record at first. But be aware, once the police get involved, you lose some control over the narrative. Sebastian grimaced. Control is an illusion at this point. Let's just get it done. Mariana stood, her gaze traveling over Amelia again with sympathy. I'll see myself out and start these processes. Call me if anything changes, or if you remember any detail about the mother that could help. When the door clicked shut, Ms. Beaumont exhaled, pressing a hand to her chest. This is really happening, she murmured. I keep expecting to wake up. Sebastian's phone chirped. Carl again. Sir, we have partial footage from a traffic light near the underpass. The van merges onto the highway heading east. We're trying to find the next camera. Also, you won't like this. There's chatter about a group that might be connected to industrial espionage. They're known for blackmail tactics. His blood ran cold. Espionage? Meaning they might be using Amelia's mother to force my hand in a business deal? Possibly, Carl confirmed. No demands yet, but it fits a pattern from older cases. Sebastian ended the call, fists clenched. If it was blackmail, he expected a ransom demand or threat. So far, silence. The unknown unnerved him more than direct confrontation. He rose, guiding Amelia to a sofa near the window. Hey, he said softly, kneeling to meet her worried eyes. Do you remember anything else about that night? About the person who took your mom? She closed her eyes, brow furrowing in concentration. We came in through the lobby. Mom told me to wait near the fountains while she talked to someone, but I got scared because I saw these men in black jackets watching us. Her eyes flickered open, brimming with tears. Mom said, "If anything happens, run. Find Lockhart." Sebastian felt a surge of sorrow at the mother's possible desperation. She'd known something might go wrong. She'd known Amelia's best chance was, somehow, Sebastian. And that knowledge left him hollow. He placed a hand over Amelia's. You did the right thing. A moment of stillness passed between them. Ms. Beaumont dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Outside, in the security office, Carl's staff worked through camera feeds, frantic to track the mother's trail. In the hush of the conference room, Sebastian realized that for perhaps the first time in his life, he couldn't strategize his way out of this crisis using money or contracts alone. This was about human lives, secrets, and a child's faith that he could protect her. We're in this together, he murmured to Amelia, voice steady. We'll find her. A small, trembling smile touched her lips. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. Then she reached for her backpack once more, pulling out the photograph that had first shown the faint silhouette of a man behind her mother and toddler self. She stared at it, tears hovering on her lashes. That's the only picture I have, she said. The only proof we ever had of him. Of you. Sebastian's chest twisted again. In that old snapshot, the man's face was turned away, but the posture and sense of presence stirred something inside him he still couldn't deny. If they discovered this was indeed him, how would he atone for missing 8 years of her life, for never knowing? And if it wasn't him, how could he let her go? He gathered both her hands in his, voice firm. Stay with me, Amelia. I'll do everything in my power to get your mom back, and we'll do the test to know the truth. Whatever happens, I'm not leaving you. He paused, fighting an avalanche of emotions. I promise. She let out a shaky exhale, leaning forward until her forehead touched his shoulder, trusting him completely in that moment. For Sebastian Lockhart, a man whose empire was built on unshakable confidence, it felt like standing on the edge of an unfamiliar precipice. He could no longer chart the outcome, yet something in the child's unwavering trust gave him a sense of purpose far stronger than any corporate victory. Time was running short, though. Somewhere out on the highway, her mother was in danger, and the people behind this abduction remained in the shadows. A battered letter hinted that he never knew. Rival interests might be orchestrating a trap. The puzzle pressed in from all sides. He shut his eyes briefly, focusing on Amelia's small form pressed against him. Right now, he had to keep her safe, keep her close, and move heaven and earth to find the missing woman before it was too late. And in doing so, unravel the question that hovered like thunderclouds on the horizon. Was he truly her father? Was she the daughter he'd never realized he had? With the hush of the conference room enveloping them, Sebastian steeled himself. Whatever the truth turned out to be, he was done turning away. For Amelia's sake, and perhaps his own, he would face it head-on. The midday sun cast sharp beams through the panoramic windows of Sebastian Lockhart's executive suite, illuminating a space caught between corporate polish and emotional upheaval. Ever since his conversation with Mariana Gray, the office phones had been ringing almost non-stop. Emails poured in about acquisitions, contracts, and high-level meetings, yet none of these typical demands held Sebastian's attention. In that newly pivotal moment, the usual thrum of business obligations felt distant, almost trivial. Inside the suite, Amelia stood by a broad window overlooking the city, captivated by how small the cars and people looked below. She clutched her stuffed toy, a mute question lingering in her eyes. Where was her mother now? And how many miles might separate them? Sebastian, meanwhile, was seated at his desk, scanning an open laptop. It displayed a series of security still shots from street cameras. The rental van first glimpsed near the hotel, then along an underpass, next merging onto the highway. Each image offered the same frustratingly blurred angle, the same ambiguous silhouette behind the wheel. More leads to chase, but no conclusive breakthroughs. A gentle knock drew Amelia's attention away from the cityscape. Ms. Beaumont entered, carrying a small tray with sandwiches and juice. "Thought you two might be hungry," she said softly. "Any progress?" Sebastian exhaled, rubbing his temples. Carl's men discovered the van left the highway at an industrial zone, but the footage there is practically non-existent. We're trying to track them further, but it's a maze of warehouses and side roads. A flicker of anxiety crossed Ms. Beaumont's features. And the paternity test? Sebastian nodded toward the far corner of the room, where a discreet medical technician, arranged by Mariana, had set up a small kit. "They'll do the swabs any minute," he explained, glancing at Amelia. "Mariana is expediting. We could see preliminary results within 48 hours, maybe sooner." At that, the little girl bit her lip, mustering a determined nod. She wanted answers, even if they might lead to more questions. Sebastian walked over, crouching so their gazes met. "We'll do the test now if you're ready. It's simple," he said, attempting a reassuring smile. "Just a swab in your mouth." Amelia glanced at the technician, who offered her a kind expression and a pair of gloves. Taking a small breath, she set her stuffed bear on the nearby couch. "Oh, okay," she agreed, her quiet voice betraying a swirl of nerves. They performed the collection quickly. A cotton swab gently brushed along the inside of Amelia's cheek, then carefully sealed in a sterile tube. Next, Sebastian did the same. The technician labeled everything, checked identification details, and tucked the samples into a secure pouch. "I'll deliver these to the lab personally," he said, speaking in a measured tone that indicated a thorough professionalism. "We'll keep it confidential." When he departed, a hush settled in the office, broken only by the steady hum of the air conditioning. Ms. Beaumont busied herself tidying the leftover medical materials, though Sebastian could sense her swirling thoughts. Amelia perched on the edge of a wide leather armchair, hands folded in her lap. Her eyes flicked to him every so often, as if searching for any sign of how he felt about all this. "Are you upset?" she asked softly at last. Sebastian's expression softened. "Not at all," he said, crossing the room until he stood beside her chair. "I'm worried about your mother, yes, and about what we'll learn from the test. But I'm not upset." She nodded, relief mixing with apprehension in her eyes. "I used to dream about this," she admitted quietly, voice trembling. "Mom always said she was sure my dad would want me if he knew, but I was scared to believe it." The confession gripped Sebastian's heart. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling how small and fragile she was. "Amelia, no matter what that test shows, you have my word. I'm not going to abandon you." The words fell from his lips with a conviction he'd rarely needed in any business deal. This was personal in a way he had never experienced. Ms. Beaumont moved closer, a soft expression crossing her face. "Amelia, I know it's a lot for you right now, but can I get you anything? Maybe we can find a children's book in the hotel shop, or you could watch a cartoon in one of the meeting rooms while Mr. Lockhart works." Glancing at the desk stacked with corporate documents and flickering laptop screens, Amelia shrugged timidly. "I guess maybe a book." She paused, then looked hopefully at Sebastian. "But can I stay close to you? In case they call about my mom?" His chest constricted. "Of course," he agreed. "I'll have some of my staff set up a little reading nook here. You're not leaving my sight, I promise." Soon Ms. Beaumont was gone to find reading materials, leaving Sebastian and Amelia alone in the hush of the office. Amelia flipped through the television channels on a small screen, eyes glazing over the business news networks that regularly displayed headlines about Lockhart Enterprises. A pang of surreal realization flitted across her face whenever she saw her potential father's name scrolling across the bottom as a featured mogul. Meanwhile, Sebastian exchanged calls with Carl, newscasting an air of unwavering calm, even though inside he felt the swirl of panic. "We found a second building connected to that shell company," Carl relayed on speakerphone. "It's in the outskirts, near an abandoned factory. We're sending a team to check, but we need to be cautious. If it's a trap—" Sebastian tensed. "I'll double your backup," he stated. "We can't keep dancing around. We need direct evidence. If there's any sign Amelia's mother is being held there—" "We'll find her," Carl finished. "Sir, just be prepared if it's a dead end again." The line cut off, leaving the room heavy. Amelia watched the conversation with wide eyes, not fully understanding but sensing the seriousness. "They'll find her," Sebastian said firmly, as if willing the universe to comply. She hugged her toy. "I hope so." An hour later, Ms. Beaumont returned, balancing a small stack of children's books. She had everything from a whimsical tale about a traveling cat to a short novel for older kids. Amelia's face brightened a little at the sight of the illustrated covers. "Thank you," she whispered. Ms. Beaumont set them on the coffee table. "My pleasure, dear." She cast a quick glance at Sebastian. He was on the phone again, brow furrowed, scanning an on-screen map. Ms. Beaumont lowered her voice to speak to Amelia. "He's doing everything he can, you know." "I can tell," Amelia murmured, eyes drifting to the tall, imposing figure who had so suddenly become her protector. She opened one of the books, flicking through pages of colorful drawings. But every so often her gaze shifted back to him, as if reassurance could be gleaned from simply watching him move with purpose. After finalizing another call, Sebastian paced to the window, scanning the city skyline. The sense of urgency gnawed at him. He wasn't used to being behind the curve, reliant on a puzzle of incomplete data. His phone's ring jolted him. It was a number he didn't recognize. Heart pounding, he signaled Ms. Beaumont to keep Amelia occupied. Then he stepped into a quieter side room and answered. A distorted voice crackled over the line. "Sebastian Lockhart!" His grip on the phone tightened. "Who is this?" he demanded, voice controlled but simmering. "An interested party," the voice replied. "You have something that belongs to us. Or rather, you will, soon enough." A chill ran up Sebastian's spine. "If you mean Amelia's mother, where is she? What do you want from me?" A low laugh, muffled by distortion. "So direct. We prefer subtlety. But let's say we need your cooperation on certain corporate matters, access, documents, and compliance. In exchange, the woman might go free. Or she might not, depending on how well you listen. Sebastian's heart pounded. If you hurt her, relax. The voice cut him off, an edge of mockery. She's alive, and if you do precisely what we say, maybe she'll stay that way. We'll send instructions soon. In the meantime, keep that little girl quiet. We wouldn't want any official attention on our arrangement, would we? The line went dead. Sebastian inhaled sharply, adrenaline surging. So it was blackmail, someone seeking leverage through the mother's abduction. And they knew about Amelia. Possibly they expected him to discover the paternity. A swirl of dread and fury collided inside him. How dare they use an innocent child's mother as a bargaining chip? He emerged from the side room, eyes blazing. "Ms." Beaumont must have read his expression. She hurried over, leaving Amelia absorbed in a picture book. "Sir? What happened? You look pale." Sebastian's jaw clenched. "They called. The kidnappers. They want me to cooperate, or else. They'll send instructions. No mention of a ransom, but they want something from me. Corporate access, maybe sabotage of a project. I don't know yet." Ms. Beaumont's eyes widened in horror. "Amelia's mother. She's alive?" He nodded stiffly. "Yes, for now." He peered over at the child, feeling the weight of a promise he couldn't break. "They threatened that if I involved the police, it might not end well for her mother." His phone vibrated again, this time with a text from the same unknown number. "Await further instructions. Tell no one." That was all. Sebastian stared at the glowing screen, anger and desperation warring inside him. He had the means to fight this legally. He could involve the police, orchestrate a sting, but these people were evidently prepared to silence the mother if he didn't comply. Amelia, sensing something amiss, lowered her book and frowned. "Mr. Lockhart, is everything okay?" He forced composure, crossing to her side. Kneeling so they were face to face, he looked into those trusting eyes. "We have a lead on your mom," he murmured, choosing his words carefully. "We know she's all right for now. But the people who took her want me to do some things. It's complicated. I promise you I won't let them hurt her." Her lower lip trembled, relief and fear tangling. "That's good, right? That she's okay?" "Yes," he managed, placing a hand over hers. "Yes, it's good. I just need you to stay safe here with Ms. Beaumont. No wandering off, okay? I'll figure out what these people want from me and how to save your mom." Amelia nodded, her small fingers curling around his for reassurance. A single tear trailed down her cheek. Fear for her mom mingled with a glimmer of hope that perhaps, at long last, she'd found someone who wouldn't walk away. Sebastian gave her hand a comforting squeeze, then rose, pressing Ms. Beaumont's shoulder gently. "Keep her close. I have to plan carefully." With that, he stepped back to the desk, phone in hand, mind spinning with the weight of the ultimatum. He'd built his career by negotiating deals others deemed impossible. But never before had a human life, especially the mother of a child who might be his daughter, hung in the balance. Any misstep could be fatal. Outside, the city glistened under the midday sun, oblivious to the quiet war unfolding in the highest reaches of the Grand Luxor. And in that swirl of threatened blackmail and uncertain parenthood, Sebastian Lockhart knew a single miscalculation could cost everything. He glanced one more time at Amelia, who forced a tiny smile of encouragement despite her watery eyes. Her unspoken plea echoed in his mind. "Bring my mother back." The vow he'd made earlier rose again, fierce and unyielding. If these captors thought they could manipulate him, they were about to learn how far Sebastian Lockhart would go to protect a child who'd come to him in desperation, and possibly by fate. The tension in Sebastian Lockhart's private office felt almost tangible, like a coil wound so tight that the faintest touch might unleash chaos. As he stood with his back to the window, phone in hand, every passing second reminded him that the kidnappers were waiting for his compliance. Yet no new message had arrived. In the corner, Amelia sat on a sofa, legs tucked beneath her. She'd tried to lose herself in the colorful pages of a children's book, but her gaze flicked constantly to Sebastian. Ms. Beaumont, perched nearby, discreetly offered solace. She whispered gentle reassurances. "He's doing everything possible, dear." But the child's worried eyes never strayed far from Sebastian's stern profile. His mind spun with conflicting impulses. On one hand, he wanted to launch a full-scale hunt for these criminals. He could tap into allies, investigators, even call in favors from city officials. On the other, the kidnapper's threat was clear. If he made any overt move, Amelia's mother might pay the price, and with each minute that slipped away, the stakes rose higher. At last, his phone buzzed, almost an afterthought, but enough to jolt him. The number was the same unknown one from earlier. He tapped the screen to read a single-line text. "Send your personal email address. Further instructions will follow." His heart hammered. Was he actually stepping into their trap by complying? One misstep, and they might retaliate. But what choice was there? Amelia's mother was the priority. So, swallowing his mounting anger, he typed back a message from a dedicated, rarely used business email, ensuring the account's traceable details were minimal. A second later, a new email notification pinged on his laptop. Sebastian exhaled and moved to the desk, opening the message. Ms. Beaumont rose, guiding Amelia toward him but keeping her at a slight distance, as if uncertain what horrors might appear on the screen. The email was short, bullet-pointed with instructions. In the next 48 hours, you will receive a memory stick with a set of files to upload to your corporate servers. You will use your highest administrative privileges so these files integrate seamlessly. Do not contact law enforcement or attempt to trace us. We are watching. Upon successful placement of the files, you will get proof the woman is alive. At the bottom, a final line. Should you fail or defy us, the outcome for her, and possibly others, will be permanent. Sebastian's blood chilled. Corporate sabotage. They wanted to plant something within his business network, likely malware or illicit code, a gateway into confidential data. This wasn't a simple ransom demand. It was industrial espionage at a terrifying level. If he followed through, he could compromise the entire operation of Lockhart Enterprises. But if he refused, Amelia's mother was in mortal danger. He clenched his fists so hard his knuckles whitened. The kidnappers had planned meticulously. They had chosen a path that exploited Sebastian's protective instincts and his unique position of power. "This can't be real," Ms. Beaumont whispered, reading over his shoulder. Her face had turned ashen. "It is real," he murmured, fighting to keep his voice calm. He glanced at Amelia, who blinked back, uncertain. They were definitely listening, or at least they claimed to be. He had to remain careful with every word. He typed a terse reply. Understood, hoping it would buy time. Then he closed the laptop, shoulders rigid. The weight of their ultimatum pressed down like an iron clamp on his chest. Amelia slipped off the sofa, inching closer. "Did they say anything about Mom?" she asked, voice quivering. Sebastian lowered himself until he was eye level with her. "Not yet," he admitted gently. "But we know they still have her. They want me to do something for them before they'll show proof she's safe." He forced a reassuring tone. "I'll find a way, Amelia." Her expression wavered between relief that her mom was still alive and fear that Sebastian might not be able to protect her after all. "Okay," she whispered, swallowing. "Please, don't let them hurt her." "I won't," he vowed, a fierce edge coloring his voice. Less than an hour later, Mariana Gray arrived, her face etched with concern. She brushed past the corridors of staff and arrived in the executive office where Ms. Beaumont ushered her inside. Seeing Amelia, Mariana stooped down. "Hello again, sweetheart," she said gently, then stood. "Sebastian, I came as soon as I heard." He gave her a curt nod, gesturing to the laptop. Without a word, he let her read the kidnapper's demands. Mariana's cheeks paled as she scrolled. "They're blackmailing you into placing unknown software on your corporate servers?" "Apparently." His tone was clipped, frustration simmering beneath the surface. "They're turning me into an accomplice to corporate espionage, and if I don't comply, or if I alert the authorities, they threaten to kill Amelia's mother. Possibly worse." Mariana pressed her lips together. "We have to tread carefully. If we let them into your systems, the damage could be catastrophic. But we can't risk a direct confrontation if it endangers an innocent life." She glanced at Amelia. "She's the priority." A tear glinted in the little girl's eye. "I just want my mom back," she said, hugging her teddy close. Mariana exchanged a look with Sebastian. "We could attempt a hidden track or sabotage on the files they send, some way to trace them or neutralize their infiltration while making it look like you're complying." Sebastian nodded grimly. "I've done some big deals with our IT experts. Maybe we can slip in a coded countermeasure, but we have to be absolutely sure it won't tip them off." "Exactly," Mariana agreed, "because if they even suspect you're working against them—" Amelia's breath caught, finishing the sentence in her mind. "They'll hurt Mom." Sebastian ran a hand through his hair. "Let's contact my top IT security specialist. Quietly, I trust him. He can create a closed environment, a decoy system that looks legitimate but doesn't actually compromise our real servers." A glimmer of hope flickered in Mariana's eyes. "Yes, like a sandbox environment to fool them. Then we can glean their program signature and, with any luck, trace it back to the source." Ms. Beaumont's face seemed to relax marginally. "That's brilliant. But is it risky?" "Everything is risky," Sebastian murmured. He glanced at Amelia, sitting stiff and anxious on the sofa. "But we have no choice. I won't just hand over our entire network, and I won't let them keep her mother." Mariana touched his arm lightly. "I'll help coordinate the legal side. But, Sebastian, once we do this, there's no turning back. They could retaliate fast if they suspect betrayal." He set his jaw. "I know. That's why we need to be sure. Our best people, absolute secrecy." They moved quickly. Mariana discreetly arranged a meeting with Elliot Chen, Lockhart Enterprises' top IT security consultant. He arrived at the executive suite by late afternoon, carrying a slim briefcase of specialized equipment. Amelia watched wide-eyed as this gentle man, sporting wire-rimmed glasses and a calm demeanor, quietly conferred with Sebastian and Mariana. "I can build what's essentially a virtual fortress within our system," Elliot explained, tapping lines of code on his own laptop. "A synthetic environment that mimics your real server architecture. When they send their files, we'll deploy them in that sandbox, making them think they've gained full access. Meanwhile, I can observe their movements, gather data, and hopefully trace a digital footprint back to the kidnappers, all while protecting your actual network." Sebastian gave a tight nod. "You're sure it won't appear suspicious? The last thing we need is them realizing it's a trap." Elliot adjusted his glasses, his calm confidence reminiscent of a man used to fighting invisible cyber wars. "I'll replicate the environment down to the smallest detail. User accounts, file structures, everything. They won't see the difference unless they examine every nook and cranny, and by that time, we'll have what we need." Ms. Beaumont, standing at the edges of the room, let out a long breath as if some weight lifted. Amelia, not grasping the technical jargon, looked from face to face. "So, this means you can trick them?" she asked in a small voice. Sebastian offered her a reassuring smile. "Yes, that's the plan." He lowered himself beside her. "We'll make them believe they have control, but in reality, we'll be protecting ourselves and gathering information to rescue your mom safely." The young girl's gaze flicked to the laptop Elliot had placed on the table, half expecting to see magic. "Does that mean we can find her soon?" Elliot's gentle smile creased his face. "I'll do my best. If their malware connects back to their server, we can trace it. Then the authorities—" He froze, recalling the kidnappers' threats. "I mean, we can respond carefully." Sebastian's posture straightened. Let's proceed. I'll wait for their memory stick or whatever they're sending. Once it arrives, we'll set it up in your sandbox environment. He glanced at Mariana. We might still need some official help to coordinate a rescue once we find their location, but we'll handle that step once we have proof. She nodded, stepping out to make a private call. Ms. Beaumont watched her leave, then turned back to Amelia, kneeling by the couch. Would you like something to eat, dear? Or maybe a little walk around the corridor? You've been cooped up in here for hours. Amelia looked uncertain. Her eyes slid back to Sebastian, a silent request for permission. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Go ahead, but stay within the executive wing. Ms. Beaumont will stay close. I just need to finalize the setup with Elliot. Okay, she whispered. Before stepping away, she mustered a wobbly smile at Elliot. Thank you for helping. His kind eyes creased. You're welcome, Amelia. We'll do everything we can. With that, Ms. Beaumont led the little girl out, the door closing softly behind them. Left alone with Elliot and the swirl of half-finished strategies, Sebastian pressed his palms flat against the desk. This has to work, he said, voice low. Those criminals won't wait forever, and if they sense any deception, they'll pull the trigger on her mother. Elliot's gaze was sympathetic but professional. I understand. We'll be meticulous. Just be ready for the possibility they'll want proof of infiltration. They might demand you open certain files or show them a specific response from your system. We can replicate that in the sandbox, but you'll have to be convincing. Sebastian exhaled. The scale of deceit weighed on him, but it was the only path that balanced the mother's survival and the protection of Lockhart Enterprises. I'll do what's needed, he said, summoning the business persona he'd honed for years, though this time the stakes were far more personal than quarterly profits or corporate expansions. As Elliot began unrolling cables to link his laptop to Sebastian's secure server, the setting sun cast the office in warm, golden light. The day had slipped by in a haze of phone calls, legal maneuvers, and a child's silent plea. Out in the corridor, Amelia's quiet footsteps echoed, each step a reminder of why Sebastian couldn't fail. She, and the mother who'd risked everything to bring her to him, were counting on him to outsmart these faceless criminals. And so he steeled himself for a chess match in the shadows, a game of subterfuge and cunning, waged in code and backdoor channels, because, for once, the business titan had discovered there was a greater duty than just safeguarding his empire, saving a family he never knew he had, and might still be learning how much he needed. Night spread across the city in a canvas of glittering lights and towering silhouettes. From the top floor of the Grand Luxor, the world below appeared almost serene. Yet inside Sebastian Lockhart's private quarters, the tension felt suffocating. He paced near the windows, hands clasped behind his back. Occasionally, his gaze drifted to the digital clock on a side table, counting the hours since the kidnapper's last message. A single lamp in the corner cast long shadows. Amelia sat curled up on the sofa, once again flipping through the pages of a children's book Ms. Beaumont had fetched for her. But she wasn't reading. Her eyes stayed fixed on a single illustration, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. Not far from her, Ms. Beaumont occupied a nearby armchair, discreetly watching Sebastian and the child with worried glances. Earlier, Mariana Gray and Elliot Chen had completed most of the cybersecurity setup, crafting the decoy environment. Now, in the hush of evening, it was a waiting game. Once the kidnappers delivered their data, likely on a memory stick or via a secure link, Sebastian would simulate full compliance while Elliot traced them on the back end. Every piece of it was a delicate dance of deception. Sebastian's phone vibrated, jolting him from his pacing. He snatched it up. The unknown number flashed on the screen, sending a spike of adrenaline through him. Amelia looked up, a question in her eyes. He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling for silence, then answered the call. An electronically distorted voice filled his ear. "Have you prepared your systems?" the kidnapper asked coolly, skipping any greeting. Sebastian forced a level tone. Yes, I'm ready for the files. When do I receive them? A mirthless chuckle. Eager, are we? The courier will arrive at the service entrance in 30 minutes. Send someone you trust to collect the package. Keep it quiet. Once you install the contents, notify us. Sebastian's throat tightened. Understood. But I want proof. Some proof that the woman is still alive. You'll get proof after you've followed the instructions, the voice countered. 30 minutes, service entrance. Don't be late. The call ended abruptly. He lowered the phone, fighting the impulse to fling it across the room in frustration. Instead, he breathed in, turning to face Ms. Beaumont and Amelia. They're sending a courier, he explained tersely. We have half an hour to get ready. Amelia stood, clasping her little stuffed bear. Will they show us my mom? Sebastian hesitated, hating the helplessness in her expression. Not yet, but once I do, as they say, they promise to give proof she's safe. He clenched his jaw, loathing how these criminals dangled a life over his head like bait. Miss Beaumont got up, smoothing her hands over her skirt. I can meet the courier, sir. I'll keep it discreet. Sebastian shook his head. No, it has to be me. I don't trust them not to demand I show up personally, but you'll come along for support. He paused, glancing at Amelia. Stay with Mariana and Elliot until I get back. The child's face twisted in anxiety. You're leaving? Only to the service entrance, inside the building, he clarified gently. I won't be far, I promise. Her gaze darted between him and Ms. Beaumont. Just be careful, she whispered. The fear in her voice tore at his heart. 15 minutes later, Sebastian strode through the dimly lit corridors toward the lower level of the hotel. Ms. Beaumont hurried beside him, occasionally throwing cautious looks over her shoulder. Late-night staff passed them, but none dared speak, sensing the tension radiating from their employer. Security's on standby, Sebastian muttered, checking his phone. He'd coordinated with Carl to watch from a distance, unobtrusively, so as not to tip off the criminals. They reached the service entrance, a plain metal door in a secluded corridor where deliveries usually arrived. The hallway's industrial lighting flickered, adding to the uneasy atmosphere. With minutes left on the clock, Sebastian stationed himself against the wall, arms folded, jaw set. Ms. Beaumont stood slightly behind him, worried but resolute. The hum of the building's ventilation was the only sound. Finally, soft footsteps echoed from around the corner. A figure emerged, clad in a dark hooded jacket, face partially obscured by the hood. They carried a small sealed envelope. Sebastian tensed. He stepped forward, voice cold. You have something for me? The hooded courier nodded but said nothing. They extended the envelope. He opened it cautiously. Inside was a plain USB flash drive, unmarked. Sebastian's pulse hammered. This had to be the malicious code they intended him to upload. Is that all? He demanded quietly. Where's the proof she's alive? Silence. The courier bowed slightly as if gesturing an apology, then turned on their heel and disappeared down the hallway. Sebastian bit back a curse, resisting the urge to chase after them. If he did anything rash, it might spook the kidnappers and endanger Amelia's mother. Ms. Beaumont touched his arm gently, eyes wide. It's all we're going to get, apparently, Sebastian muttered, tucking the USB in his suit pocket. Let's go. They retraced their steps to the executive level, urgency crackling in the air. They had shown no sign of budging. They expected him to comply blindly with no immediate reassurance. The memory of Amelia's hopeful face fueled his resolve. He would play the part to perfection, install their code, fool them into believing they'd succeeded. Then, with Elliot's covert sandbox, he'd trap them in their own web. They arrived back at Sebastian's private office, where Mariana and Elliot were already waiting. Amelia stood by the window, her gaze darting anxiously between them. Upon seeing Sebastian safe, her shoulders visibly relaxed. Ms. Beaumont shut the door, and Sebastian pulled out the USB drive, setting it on the desk. "No proof of life," he reported, frustration evident in his tone. "They said it'll come after I install their files." Elliot studied the flash drive with wary eyes. "We should proceed. Let me connect it to the sandbox environment." Sebastian glanced at Amelia. "We'll do it now, okay? This is part of how we get your mom back." She nodded, fists clenched around her teddy. "Please, let it work," she whispered. Elliot slipped the flash drive into a secure reader attached to his specialized laptop. Lines of code flickered across the screen. "Yes, as expected. It's a script that'll inject some form of malware. Let's move carefully. One wrong step, and they might suspect we're containing it." Mariana hovered, arms folded, her face tight with worry. "Take your time, Elliot." Over the next few tense minutes, Elliot navigated an elaborate process. He duplicated the live server environment in real time, ensuring the kidnapper's code would see everything it expected. A swirl of Lockhart Enterprises data and user accounts, all meticulously faked. Slowly, progress bars lit up the monitor. Amelia stood on tiptoe, trying to catch a glimpse. She only saw incomprehensible lines of text. "It looks like a video game," she murmured. Sebastian gave her a faint smile, his mind too taut for levity. "This is our best chance." Eventually, Elliot exhaled. "All right, I'm executing the final script. It'll appear as though we've fully integrated their program into Lockhart's main system. Once it's live, they should be able to connect remotely and do whatever they're planning, or so they'll think." Sebastian nodded grimly. "And we'll be watching them from behind the curtain." "Exactly," Elliot affirmed. "We can't touch or block them too soon or they'll know it's fake. But we'll see if they're communicating from a static IP or bouncing signals. Anything we can use to trace them." Mariana stepped forward. "You're certain it looks genuine enough?" Elliot's fingers flew over the keyboard. "Yes, I've cloned everything down to the server logs and user metadata. Unless they run exhaustive tests, it'll fool them. Once they think they've succeeded, hopefully they'll send that proof of life." Sebastian's eyes flicked to Amelia. Her small face was taut with worry. "Good," he said, squaring his shoulders. "We'll notify them it's done." He typed out an email to the unknown address, short and to the point. "Installation complete, awaiting your response." Then he hit send, tension coiling in his gut. The minutes ticked by in silence. Amelia read the clock anxiously. "Ms." Beaumont hovered close, while Mariana and Elliot monitored the sandbox system for any sign of incoming connection. Finally, Sebastian's phone chimed. A message. No subject line. He opened it, mindful that Amelia was watching. The text read, "Check your inbox for proof." His heart thundered. "Inbox," he echoed, swiftly switching to his email. A newly arrived message had an attachment titled proofoflife.mp4. Sebastian's throat tightened. Video file. "They sent a video," he announced, voice trembling slightly. All eyes were on him as he clicked the attachment. A small window popped up on the screen. Grainy footage revealed a dimly lit room. A woman with blonde hair, kneeling, hands bound. It looked like a warehouse environment, with bare concrete walls. She turned her face toward the camera, revealing exhausted features but unmistakably alive. For a split second, Sebastian's entire body slackened with relief. Amelia's mother, still breathing. Amelia gasped, stumbling forward, tears springing to her eyes. "Mom!" she cried. Ms. Beaumont caught her gently, holding her shoulders. In the video, the woman spoke, her voice shaky but audible. "Sebastian, if you're seeing this, I'm okay for now. They want you to do as they say. Please, please, just protect Amelia." The final words came out almost as a plea before the camera cut off. A hush descended, thick with emotion. Amelia choked on a sob. "She's alive. She said your name." Sebastian swallowed hard, stepping closer to Amelia. His hand settled on her arm, offering support. "Yes," he whispered, eyes still fixed on the frozen image of the mother's face. "She's alive. We'll get her back." Elliot gently shut the video window, his expression grave. "I'm capturing the metadata. Might be a clue in the file's origin." He typed rapidly, scanning for any hidden signatures. "They disguised it well, but maybe there's a server path." Mariana let out a ragged breath, relief tainted by dread. "At least we know she's alive for now. But they'll keep her until they're satisfied with whatever infiltration they need to accomplish." Amelia, tears glistening on her cheeks, turned to Sebastian. "She said your name," she repeated, voice laden with meaning. "She said, 'Please protect me.'" It was as if her mother's plea cemented the possibility that Sebastian was indeed her father, or at least the only person capable of saving them both. He knelt, pulling Amelia into a tight embrace. "I will," he murmured, a surge of protectiveness flaring in his chest. "I promise, Amelia, I'm going to protect you and rescue her, no matter what it takes." Over his shoulder, Ms. Beaumont dabbed her eyes. The fear still lingered, but the video had ignited a spark of renewed determination. Mariana stepped toward the door. "I'll coordinate with Carl. We need to be ready. If we can figure out the kidnapper's location—" Sebastian nodded, still cradling Amelia. Elliot busied himself analyzing the file, the flurry of keystrokes echoing in the otherwise silent room. The air felt charged, like the pause before a storm's climax. Amelia's sobs slowed, and she buried her face against Sebastian's shoulder, clinging as if he were her only anchor in a maelstrom of confusion and fear. Softly, he stroked her hair, eyes locked on the frozen video thumbnail of her captive mother. If these people believed they could exploit him indefinitely, they were in for a surprise. He was no stranger to high-stakes deals, but this time, the cost was far too personal. "Hang on," he whispered, as much to the mother in the video as to the child in his arms. "This isn't over yet." Dusk deepened to full night, wrapping the city skyline in an indigo haze. High up in the Grand Luxor, Sebastian Lockhart's office remained brightly lit, an island of tense activity against the darkness beyond. The hum of air conditioning did little to calm the roiling emotions within. A short while ago, the kidnappers had sent a video proving Amelia's mother was alive. Now, all eyes were on Elliot's laptop as he picked apart every digital clue hidden within that short clip. Seated beside him, Mariana Gray watched each line of code scroll across the screen, arms folded. On the far side of the office, Amelia huddled next to Ms. Beaumont on a small couch, her hands fidgeting with the edges of a blanket. Though she had glimpsed proof her mother still breathed, an unrelenting worry dimmed her usual childish spark. Sebastian, restless as ever, paced the floor in silent concentration. "Any luck with the metadata?" Mariana asked at last, her voice hushed so as not to rattle the anxious quiet. Elliot scratched his chin, eyes scanning the data. "They've hidden most traces expertly, probably bouncing signals through multiple servers. Still, there's a partial IP link suggesting a region on the outskirts of the city. Could be the same industrial zone Carl's men scouted earlier where the van disappeared." Sebastian stopped pacing, turning to Elliot. "Do we have enough to pinpoint a location?" "Not yet," Elliot admitted, lips thinning. "But I'll keep refining. If they do more remote operations on our sandbox, we might catch additional footprints." Mariana exhaled, her shoulders sagging. "They'll keep the mother alive as long as they believe they can get what they want. That might buy us time, but we can't count on it indefinitely." From the couch, Amelia's small voice piped up, trembling. You won't let them kill her, right?" In 2 strides, Sebastian was beside her, kneeling to meet her tearful gaze. "Not a chance," he murmured, voice firm despite the swirl of uncertainty. "We're going to find her. I've never failed in a deal before, and I'm not about to start now, especially not with your mom's life on the line." Amelia nodded, blinking away tears. Ms. Beaumont placed a comforting arm around the child. The best minds in this city are here to help," Ms. Beaumont said gently. A moment later, Carl, the head of security, entered briskly, shutting the door behind him with care. He carried a slim folder under one arm. "Sir, we've done more digging on the shell company behind the rental van. Seems they've used multiple aliases, always connected to corporate sabotage or blackmail. They appear to vanish after each job." He glanced at Amelia, mindful of not scaring her. "This group is known to be ruthless." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Then we play them at their own game. Our sandbox environment is up and running. They might believe they have free rein inside Lockhart Enterprises, but we're monitoring them." Carl nodded grimly. "I'll keep a close watch on any leads from Elliot's analysis. Also, my men are checking every abandoned site in the industrial zone. It's a big area. Some buildings are practically labyrinths." Mariana eyed Carl's folder. "What's in there?" He flipped it open to reveal grainy photographs of a row of decrepit warehouses. "A couple of hours ago, my men spotted suspicious movement near one complex. Lights in an otherwise abandoned structure. We're trying to get closer without alerting them." Amelia peeked at the photos, half hiding behind Ms. Beaumont. "Could Mom be there?" she whispered, a note of fragile hope in her voice. "Possibly," Carl conceded gently. "But we can't confirm yet." Sebastian pinched the bridge of his nose, weighed down by each new detail. "If we could confirm that's where they're holding her, we might coordinate a rescue, but we can't risk a raid unless we're certain. They'll kill her if they sense infiltration." Carl's phone buzzed. He stepped to one side, answering in hushed tones. Moments later he returned, a new tension in his features. "It's one of my men. They've seen a van matching the partial plate near that warehouse. No sign of your mother, but it's definitely the same vehicle." Sebastian's heart pounded. "So they are there," he murmured, voice low. He glanced at Mariana and Elliot, feeling the weight of finality. "Then the place is key." The lawyer, brow furrowed, spoke softly. "If we confirm they're holding her inside, we still need to consider how we'll manage the criminals. A direct assault might cause them to panic and retaliate." Elliot looked up from his laptop. "If we can glean a better digital trail, maybe we can isolate who's inside, coordinate an extraction that's precise. But it might take time." A hush followed. Time was not on their side. Amelia's wide eyes darted between them all, absorbing the fear each adult tried to mask. Sebastian raked a hand through his hair, swallowing the urge to curse. None of his usual corporate maneuvers could guarantee the mother's safety. Unexpectedly, Ms. Beaumont cleared her throat. "Sir, with respect, perhaps we can do something more direct. The kidnappers trust you for now. They think you've complied. Maybe they'll allow a short meeting to prove your installation is working. You could push for a face-to-face, negotiate the mother's freedom." Amelia stiffened, hope flickering anew. "Would they let her go if you met them?" she asked. "It's a risk," Mariana said grimly. "They've shown they prefer controlling the situation from a distance." Carl, too, looked uneasy. They might see a meeting request as suspicious. But maybe if Sebastian frames it as needing final instructions or clarifications, it could work. Sebastian inhaled. "Let me think." He'd orchestrated countless business deals requiring delicate personal negotiations. But these criminals were no standard boardroom adversaries. Still, Ms. Beaumont's suggestion gave him an idea. If he could request a demonstration that everything was integrated properly, he might coax them into showing up in person, or at least letting him see the mother under some supervised condition. Then Carl's men could intervene quietly, or so he hoped. He straightened, decision settling in his mind. "I'll email them," he said, moving to the desk. "Tell them the installation appears successful, but I need a direct meeting or call to finalize some technical aspects. Elliot, you back me up with plausible IT jargon. Maybe that lures them into direct contact." Elliot nodded, quickly drafting the message with references to server sync, multi-factor credentials, anything that sounded convincingly complicated. Sebastian typed it out, paused briefly, then hit send. Tension spiked in the room like electricity in a gathering storm. They were gambling on criminals who'd thus far been cautious and remote. If these kidnappers were spooked, they might vanish, and take Amelia's mother with them. Minutes crawled by. Amelia's nails bit into her teddy's fur, Ms. Beaumont's foot tapped anxiously, and Mariana shared grim looks with Carl. Then, the laptop dinged with an incoming reply. Sebastian opened the email, reading it aloud for the small group. "We will call you by video at midnight. If we're satisfied with your explanation, we'll consider your request to see the woman. Fail to convince us, and the next video you receive will not be so reassuring." Amelia's face paled, understanding the threat implied. "Video call," she whispered. Mariana tried to keep her tone calm. "It might be our best chance to confirm the mother's location, or at least get more time to trace them." Carl rubbed his chin. "A midnight video call, that's in—" He checked his watch. "Less than 2 hours. We need to prepare everything quickly." Sebastian nodded, adrenaline thrumming in his veins. This was it. An unexpected opening, albeit a dangerous one. "Elliot, can we route their video call through your sandbox environment? If they share screens or data, we might glean location details." "Absolutely," Elliot said, typing swiftly. "I'll set up a secure feed. We can appear to them like it's your personal system, but behind the scenes, we'll capture every possible scrap of data. Mariana, we'll need to monitor any fluctuations in the IP signals." The lawyer straightened. "I can do that. Meanwhile, Carl should have tactical teams on standby, focusing on that warehouse. If we detect coordinates, we move at once." Carl's expression hardened with resolve. "Yes, sir." Then he turned to Ms. Beaumont. "Ma'am, would you keep Amelia away from the direct line of sight during this call? We can't let them see or hear her inadvertently." Ms. Beaumont glanced at the child who clung to her small teddy. "Of course, I'll watch over her," she promised, gently guiding Amelia aside. "Don't worry, dear. They won't hurt your mother. We're going to outsmart them." Amelia mustered a nod, though fear trembled behind her eyes. "Midnight," she repeated, voice tight. "That's soon." Sebastian placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'll do my best. Let's take every advantage we can and bring your mom home." He looked at Ms. Beaumont. "Find her someplace quiet for the call, somewhere she can still feel safe but not overhear anything disturbing." "Yes, sir," Ms. Beaumont affirmed. "Come, Amelia. Maybe we can brew some tea. I'll find something calming for you." Though reluctant to leave Sebastian's side, the girl followed Ms. Beaumont out. Her parting glance at him spoke volumes. Faith, worry, a child's fragile hope pinned on the only father figure she knew. He exhaled, letting that silent plea strengthen his resolve. Returning to Elliot's side, Sebastian studied the lines of code. "I'll need a convincingly technical reason for them to reveal more data, or at least stay on the call long enough for a trace." Elliot nodded, adjusting his glasses. "We can claim the script requires advanced permissions, or we're encountering error logs. I'll feed you cues to prolong the conversation." Mariana's phone buzzed. Another update from Carl's men near the warehouse. "No sign of new movement," she reported softly. "They're staying put, likely waiting for your midnight call." Sebastian looked around at his small band of allies. This was the turning point, he sensed. In less than 2 hours, the kidnappers would face him in a real-time video link, and he'd either secure a path to rescue Amelia's mother or slip further into their deadly game. Outside the window, the city light shimmered, indifferent to the drama unfolding high above. Sebastian turned off the overhead fluorescence, leaving the space lit by a softer lamp. He wanted clarity, focus, not sterile brightness. Midnight was coming, and with it, a battle of wits that would determine the fate of an innocent woman, and quite possibly the course of his own life. For a fleeting second, he recalled Amelia's mother's words in the Proof of Life video. "Please, protect Amelia." He could do no less. He squared his shoulders, gaze sweeping across Elliot and Mariana. "Let's get ready," he said quietly. "We have one shot at this. We have to make it count." Midnight crept closer, intensifying every second's wait in Sebastian Lockhart's office. The overhead lights remained dim, allowing the shimmering cityscape beyond the window to frame him in silhouette. At the large central desk, Elliot typed with unflagging focus, finalizing the secure video setup. Mariana sat to one side, her laptop open, lines of code and IP traces flickering on the screen. This was to be a delicate performance for a high-stakes audience. From time to time, Sebastian stole a glance at the closed door on the far side of the office suite. Beyond it, Ms. Beaumont had taken Amelia to a smaller reading room, hoping to distract the girl from the looming confrontation. He could scarcely imagine how Amelia felt, knowing that in minutes her mother's captors would appear on screen, controlling her fate. Despite the swirl of anxiety, a steely resolve had settled over him. He had to keep his promises. Carl, the head of security, stepped into the office with quiet urgency. He wore a discreet earpiece, occasionally muttering updates to his team stationed around the hotel and near the suspected warehouse. "We're in position," he said in a low voice, catching Sebastian's eye. "My men are ready in case we detect a concrete location. They'll move swiftly, but only on your signal. We cannot risk spooking them prematurely." Sebastian nodded. Understood. His jaw was set, arms crossed. "We want them to stay on the call long enough for Elliot and Mariana to track any data or location signals. Let's hope they slip up." Elliot paused his typing, pivoting in his chair. "I can only do so much if they're routing through multiple layers of encryption. But if they stay online a few minutes, we might pry something loose, like a server handshake or an accidental leak, especially if I prompt them to run a system check on our installation." "That's the plan," Mariana added, glancing at the time in the corner of her screen. "We have about 10 minutes before midnight. Once they connect, Sebastian, keep them talking. Any silence or hesitation might raise suspicion." His gaze hardened. "I'll handle it. I've negotiated with adversaries in business for years. This is more extreme, but I won't falter." Yet the confidence in his voice masked the torrent of emotion underneath. No high-stakes merger had ever felt as personal or as perilous. Carl stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm worried they might show us Amelia's mother again, maybe as leverage if they think you're stalling. Be prepared for that, sir. It won't be easy to watch." Sebastian swallowed. "I know. But if we can see her, we confirm she's still alive. That'll strengthen our position." All eyes turned to the clock. 11:58, 11:59. The hush was profound. Elliot finished configuring the final lines of code and nodded at Sebastian, silently signaling they were ready. Mariana's phone lay face up next to her laptop, capturing the situation from a different angle. Carl stood near the door, one hand against his earpiece. At exactly midnight, the laptop beeped, a new incoming request from the kidnappers. Elliot opened the secure communication channel. On screen, a dark window filled the top half. For a moment, only pitch blackness and faint static. Then a voice sliced through the silence. "Lockhart," it said, electronically distorted like before, but more pronounced, perhaps to further obscure their identity. Sebastian inhaled, stepping into the camera's frame. "I'm here," he said, forcing calm. "I have your program running on my server, but we need to align some final parameters. We're seeing error logs that require your input." A flicker of movement in the darkness on screen. The kidnappers had no visible face, just a faint outline of a hood or mask. "What parameters?" Elliot, out of camera view, rapidly typed instructions on a secondary monitor. Sebastian followed the cues. "It's about the system kernel. Your code demands privileged root access. We're noticing partial conflicts with other server tasks. Could you clarify how your script handles concurrency?" The kidnappers paused. "Why do you need that?" Sebastian let just a tinge of impatience color his voice, like a pressured executive trying to meet their demands yet facing technical hurdles. Look, I've done everything you asked, but if we don't fix these conflicts, your infiltration might crash or freeze, then we'd both lose. I assume you don't want that. Another pause. Elliot's screen glowed, capturing data packets. Mariana gave Sebastian a nod, meaning they'd detected the kidnappers trying to connect deeper into the system. "Keep going," Mariana whispered, muted behind her hand. "All right," said the distorted voice at last. "We'll send a patch. But remember, no tricks. Any hint of sabotage, and the woman dies. Understood?" Sebastian's heart clenched. "Understood," he said, voice crisp. "But I want some assurances you aren't lying about her safety." "I've complied so far." A low chuckle. "Yes, you want to see your precious captive. Very well. We'll show you." The screen flickered, and abruptly, the video changed. Light spilled across a bleak interior, a warehouse room, the same drab concrete walls as before. Tied to a chair was Amelia's mother, hair disheveled but eyes fiercely alert. A figure loomed behind her, features obscured by a hood or mask. Amelia's mother lifted her head, blinking at the bright camera light. Then, seemingly spotting Sebastian's image on whatever device the kidnappers used, she managed to form words despite a gag. "Seb, please." A wave of heartbreak crashed over him at the sound of her voice. She coughed, struggling. "Amelia." But the captor pulled the gag up, silencing her again. Sebastian steadied himself. "She's alive. That's good." He clenched his fists. On the side, Mariana typed furiously, Elliot's system capturing fleeting glimpses of the environment, shadows, angles, anything that might offer a clue. "Enough!" the kidnapper snapped. The camera yanked away from the mother's face, returning to the shadowy figure. "Now, you said you need a patch. I'll upload it. Once installed, you'll confirm your system is fully integrated. Then maybe we'll talk about letting her go." Elliot scribbled a note on a pad for Sebastian to read. "Draw them out. Ask for more details. Stall." Sebastian nodded imperceptibly, turning back to the camera. "Yes, but listen, the error logs mention a missing dependency. We can't patch it blindly. You have to specify the version." He rattled off a series of code references that Elliot had prepared. "If not, you might lose the infiltration entirely." The kidnappers cursed under their breath, distortion crackling. "Give me a moment." For a brief window, the video feed froze as if they toggled their device to handle the file. Elliot's eyes lit up. On his laptop, a flurry of new data rushed in. "Tracing," he murmured. "They're adjusting a code file on their end. Keep them engaged." Sebastian played the part. "While you're at it, let me see the woman again, just to be sure you haven't harmed her. I have to know we're not wasting time, or else I might not bother finishing this integration." A low growl. "Fine." The camera swiveled back to the mother. She flinched against the harsh glare. Though fear lined her face, her eyes gleamed with resolve. Sebastian's heart twisted. He remembered Amelia in the other room, imagining how she would react if she saw her mom in such danger. He forced his expression to remain steeled. "Are you seeing this, Lockhart?" the kidnapper demanded. "She's alive, unhurt, unless you give us a reason to change that. Now do your job." Sebastian forced a curt nod. "I will. Send the patch." Elliot's fingers flew. "They're uploading something to the sandbox environment," he whispered. "I'm capturing the source." Mariana's screen showed streaming lines of code, her brows knitted in concentration. Seconds passed like hours, the tension thick. On the call, the kidnappers forced the mother to bow her head, presumably to hide her face or discourage any reading of her lips. Sebastian's anger simmered, but he maintained composure, reciting a carefully rehearsed line of technical jargon. "We received the patch. Integrating now. This might take a minute. Lots of dependencies." A second voice, unmasked but faint, suddenly barked from off-camera, "Hurry it up! We don't have all night." The first kidnapper hissed for silence. Elliot scribbled another note for Sebastian. "We have partial IP. Keep them on the line 30 more seconds." Sebastian nodded discreetly. "We're at 40% installation. Another moment." He let out an exasperated sigh, playing the role of a stressed executive dealing with complicated code. "This would be easier if we had direct server logs from your side. Are you seeing the handshake errors?" The kidnapper snarled. "Don't push your luck, just do it." 15 seconds. 20. Elliot tapped his screen in excitement, eyes flicking to Mariana. She mouthed the words, "We've got something." "All right," the kidnapper said abruptly. "That's enough. Wrap it up. Show me your screen. Prove it's integrated." Sebastian quickly pulled up the decoy system interface, a perfect replica of the Lockhart Enterprise's main server. On the video feed, he angled the camera so they could see the false environment with a successful "installation complete" message. "You see?" he said. "It's done. Full privileges. The infiltration is stable now." Mariana typed fast, one final attempt at gleaning data. Elliot watched a real-time tracker. They're still connected. Still, got it. The kidnappers sounded smug. Well, Lockhart, you might be more useful than we thought. Keep everything running smoothly. We'll contact you again. If you make a single move to shut us out, she dies." Sebastian risked one last plea. "When do we talk about releasing her?" "Soon," the distorted voice replied. "Stay obedient, and your precious mother of that child will live. Try anything clever, and you'll regret it. End of discussion." The screen cut to black. Static hissed for a second, then the connection closed. Everyone froze, hearts pounding. The hush felt deafening. Then Mariana slapped the table lightly in excitement. "We got a partial trace. We might have them." Elliot nodded, all business, scanning the captured data. "Yes, a direct ping for about 5 seconds from a location near the warehouse district. Enough to confirm they're definitely in that region." Carl's eyes lit with resolve. "I'll instruct the team to converge. We can isolate that building. If we're stealthy, we might rescue her before they suspect anything." Sebastian exhaled, relief and fear warring in him. "We have to be swift. If we tip them off, it's over. But this might be the opening we need." At the far side of the office door, soft footsteps. Ms. Beaumont emerged cautiously, Amelia peering from behind her. The child's face was pale with worry. "Is it over?" she asked, voice trembling. Sebastian managed a tight smile, beckoning her forward. "For now, they believed our act, and we might know where they're holding your mom." Her eyes widened. "Really?" He bent down, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Yes, we'll try to rescue her soon, but it's dangerous. You'll stay here, safe with Ms. Beaumont or Mariana, while I help coordinate." Tears of relief slipped down Amelia's cheeks. She threw her small arms around his waist, clutching him tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Please, bring her back." A hush fell as Ms. Beaumont, Mariana, Elliot, and Carl exchanged resolute looks. They had no illusions. This would be the riskiest step yet. But for the first time, they had a solid lead, gleaned from the kidnapper's own arrogance. Sebastian returned the child's hug, a powerful swell of protectiveness rising in him. He pressed a kiss to her hair, heart hammering. "I promise," he murmured, voice thick with determination. "We'll save her." With the digital deception complete and a tenuous thread leading to the warehouse district, the moment of truth drew near. The kidnappers believed they had full control, but little did they know that Sebastian Lockhart and his small band of allies were about to strike back and free one mother who had risked everything to find a father for her daughter. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight as Sebastian Lockhart stood in the bustling makeshift command post they had set up within the Grand Luxor's lower-level conference room. Maps, laptops, and communication gear covered a long table. Despite the late hour, the air pulsed with urgency. Carl's security team relayed status updates from the field in hushed tones. and Mariana Gray coordinated any legal or tactical paperwork in the background. Amelia's mother was somewhere in an abandoned warehouse, tied to a chair under the watchful eyes of dangerous criminals. Yet Sebastian felt closer than ever to saving her. He fixed his gaze on a digital map displayed on a large monitor. A tiny blinking dot indicated the approximate area from which the kidnappers had connected during the video call. Next to him, Amelia clutched a steaming mug of hot chocolate Ms. Beaumont had brought, though she hadn't sipped much. Her eyes darted over the swirl of activity, exhausted yet unwilling to rest until her mother was safe. Every so often she stepped closer to Sebastian, as though his mere presence kept her fears at bay. Ms. Beaumont hovered protectively, ready to guide the child away if anything too distressing arose. Carl approached, earpiece in place, speaking quietly. "Sir, our men have the warehouse surrounded. They're scouting vantage points. No overt movement yet. They see a few armed lookouts in the vicinity." Sebastian studied the monitor. "Have they confirmed which building?" he asked, voice urgent but controlled. "We can't raid the wrong location." Carl consulted his phone. "They've narrowed it down to one structure based on the van sightings and faint interior lights. A perimeter is in place, but the kidnappers might have backup or booby traps." Elliot Chen, the IT specialist, looked up from a laptop at the side of the table. "The kidnappers' infiltration into our sandbox is active. They're poking around, probably reveling in the false data they think they've stolen." He shook his head in a mix of disgust and relief. "It's holding them at bay, at least. Hopefully they're too busy celebrating to notice your security teams closing in." "Good," Sebastian murmured. He felt a fierce resolve settle in his chest. "We need the element of surprise. The moment they suspect we've played them, they'll turn on her mother. So how do we ensure she isn't harmed during an approach?" Mariana Gray clicked through some files on her own laptop. "We have to coordinate a swift, targeted breach. Carl's men secure the woman first before the kidnappers can react. Then they can handle any other threats." A subtle quiver passed through Amelia's small frame. Though her expression remained set with determination, Sebastian sensed her terror. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You'll be safe here. We'll bring her back, Amelia." She swallowed hard, eyes shining with tears she refused to let fall. "Hurry," she whispered, the single word carrying all her desperation. Carl relayed final instructions into his earpiece. "Alpha Team, confirm visual. Beta Team on standby." He paused, listening intently to crackling replies. Then he looked to Sebastian. "They're ready to move on your signal." For a moment, Sebastian hesitated, recalling the ominous threat in the kidnapper's voice. Any betrayal, and she dies. But the memory of the mother's pleading eyes in the proof-of-life video pushed him forward. If they waited too long, these criminals would only tighten their hold and continue their blackmail with no promise of release. He locked eyes with Carl. "Go," he said firmly. "Tell them to execute the plan, but remind them, her safety comes first. No risky shootouts unless absolutely necessary." Carl nodded, stepping away to convey the order. In the tense minutes that followed, the command post fell silent except for the quiet buzz of technology and the occasional click of keys. Mariana stood near Amelia, gently explaining that Sebastian's security team were experts used to dangerous operations. Ms. Beaumont stroked the girl's hair, whispering that each moment brought them closer to a rescue. Sebastian listened in as Carl's men communicated over encrypted channels. "Alpha Team entering from west side. Door locked. Picking the latch now. Beta Team in position at the rear. One armed guard outside, neutralizing quietly. Inside corridor clear. Lights are dim. Hearing voices down the hall. Possible hostage location." Each snippet of radio chatter tightened Sebastian's chest. His gaze never left the big monitor, though it showed no new information, just a blinking dot representing an approximate location. They'd have to rely on Carl's trained men to do the rest. At last, a hushed voice on the line. "We've got visual on the hostage, female blonde seated in a corner room. 2 captors nearby, armed. We'll move in sync. Stand by. Amelia's small hand slipped into Sebastian's, and he squeezed gently, both a reassurance for her and a grounding force for himself. Time felt elastic, each second an eternity. Then, "Alpha Team, go!" The command came through Carl's earbud, echoed in the tense hush of the command post. They heard muffled sounds of a scuffle, rapid footsteps, a shout cut short. The static spiked. Amelia's grip tightened, breath held. Ms. Beaumont gently guided her a step back, but her eyes were locked on Sebastian's. "Target secured!" crackled a triumphant voice. "Hostage safe, I repeat. Hostage is safe. Captors subdued. No shots fired. We're extracting her now." A collective exhale swept the room. Sebastian's heart pounded, relief flooding him. Mariana covered her mouth, fighting an emotional response. Ms. Beaumont let out a whispered, "Oh, thank goodness!" And Amelia. Her eyes darted frantically between them all. They got her?" she asked in a trembling voice, scarcely able to believe it. Carl nodded, his own relief evident in his face. "They have her, Amelia. She's free. They'll bring her to safety and confirm her condition." Tears of joy sprang forth as Amelia buried her face against Sebastian, sobbing in relief. He stroked her back, feeling the tension finally unravel in his chest. "They did it," he murmured, voice thick. "Your mom is safe." Ms. Beaumont, eyes moist, pulled the child into a gentle embrace. "Your mother's okay," she whispered. Mariana discreetly dabbed at her own eyes, stepping aside to consult with Elliot. Carl spoke softly into the microphone, requesting an immediate medical check on the rescued mother. Meanwhile, the feed from the men on site continued. "She's conscious, though weak and dehydrated. Minimal injuries, some bruises. We're escorting her out now. Perpetrators in custody. One more suspect fled, but we have a perimeter." A pang of concern rippled through Sebastian. "One fled?" Carl nodded soberly. "We'll track them, but the main threat is neutralized. Let's focus on reuniting Amelia and her mother." A few minutes later, the call ended, leaving the command post in an odd hush. Relief mingled with the awareness that the ordeal wasn't fully over. The kidnappers, or at least some of them, might still lurk. But the immediate crisis, the mother's life, was resolved. Amelia, clinging to Sebastian's side, gazed up with an unspoken question. He mustered a reassuring smile. "They'll bring her here soon once she's checked by the medics. Then you can see her." Tears glistened in her eyes anew, but these were the tears of happiness. "Thank you," she whispered. You saved her just like you said." His heart squeezed. "I couldn't have done it alone," he said, gesturing at Carl, Mariana, Elliot, and Ms. Beaumont. "They all helped. And you were so brave, Amelia." She nodded, exhaling softly. "I'm just, glad she's okay." Ms. Beaumont stroked the girl's hair. "Let's go upstairs, We can wait in a quieter room. This place is too busy." Amelia glanced at Sebastian. "Will you come?" He touched her shoulder gently. "I'll follow soon. I need to coordinate a bit more with Carl." Though reluctant, the child allowed Ms. Beaumont to guide her away, giving Sebastian one last grateful smile. In the hushed aftermath, Mariana and Elliot approached Sebastian. "We've neutralized their infiltration, but I'll keep the sandbox running until we can identify the missing kidnapper," Elliot said, checking the activity log. "They might try something reckless if they realize the mother is freed." Sebastian nodded. "We'll stay vigilant." Then he faced Mariana. "Legally, what's next?" She sighed, relief tempering her usual professionalism. "A formal statement to the authorities, testifying about the abduction and the attempted blackmail. Most of the criminals are in custody, so the police will charge them. I doubt they'll resist naming the one who fled." Carl hung up from a final call. "My men confirm the mother's injuries are minor. She insisted on seeing Amelia immediately. We'll bring her in by a secure route, then probably take her to a hospital for a thorough checkup." Sebastian's gaze flicked to the clock. It was nearly 1 a.m. "All right," he said, the swirl of adrenaline beginning to fade into exhaustion. "Let's have them bring her to the VIP medical suite upstairs. Amelia can be with her. I want them to rest in safety." Carl clapped a hand on Sebastian's shoulder. "Congratulations, sir. You did it. We'll handle the details." A weary smile tugged at Sebastian's lips. "We did it," he corrected, nodding in gratitude at each ally in the room. The magnitude of relief was overwhelming. Ever since Amelia had walked into the Grand Luxor, terror clutching her small frame, they had been chasing a life-or-death outcome. Now, at last, hope had prevailed. 30 minutes later, the VIP medical suite, normally reserved for wealthy guests who fell ill, was a scene of emotional reunion. A temporary stretcher stood in the center of the room. There, Amelia's mother lay propped on pillows, an IV drip in her arm. Bandages adorned her wrists where the ropes had chafed. Although pale and fatigued, her face lit up in a tearful smile the moment Amelia burst through the door. "Mom!" Amelia cried, rushing forward. "Ms." Beaumont made a soft exclamation, but quickly let the girl go. The mother's eyes brimmed over as she opened her arms, embracing her daughter with all the strength she had left. The intensity of their reunion hushed everyone else in the room. Sebastian lingered near the entrance, his heart pounding with a mixture of relief and some deeper emotion he couldn't fully name. Seeing Amelia and her mother share sobs of gratitude and love underscored the depth of what they'd almost lost. Mariana and Carl, standing quietly by, exchanged soft smiles of triumph. After a minute, Amelia's mother looked up, her gaze locking onto Sebastian. A swirl of memories and unspoken truths flitted across her exhausted features. Gently, she beckoned him closer. "Sebastian," she rasped, voice thick with emotion. "You saved us." He approached slowly, stopping at her bedside. "I'm just glad you're safe," he said softly. "Amelia was so brave through all of this." The woman cast a loving, teary look at her daughter, stroking the child's hair. Then she turned back to Sebastian. She's always believed you would come for her," she whispered. "I'm sorry it had to happen this way. Her voice caught and she closed her eyes against a wave of exhaustion. Sebastian gently rested a hand on her arm. "Shh, we can talk details later," he murmured. "All that matters right now is your recovery." But Amelia, who clung to her mother's side, stared at Sebastian with a hopeful expression. "Mom said that you never knew," she ventured carefully. "But now, you do, right?" The room hushed. Sebastian felt Mariana and Ms. Beaumont watching discreetly from a corner. He nodded, inhaling a steadying breath. "Yes," he said gently. "We did a test. We're waiting on final results." He cast a quick glance at her mother, voice softening. "But I think we know the truth." Tears glistened in her mother's eyes. "I never meant to hide her from you," she whispered. "Circumstances were complicated. I was afraid." Sebastian swallowed a knot of emotion. He recalled the battered letter, the photograph showing a faceless man in the background. So much time had passed. 8 years of missed birthdays, milestones, and memories. But looking at Amelia now, wrapped in her mother's arms, he felt only compassion and a fierce desire to protect them both. "You're safe now," he said, voice unwavering. "Both of you, and we'll figure out everything else together." Amelia's mother nodded, tears slipping free. She clasped Amelia's hand in one of hers and, with the other, reached for Sebastian's. He took it, heart hammering. Even without the paternity test's final confirmation, he understood deep down that fate had delivered him a daughter, and with her, a chance at a life beyond his cold business empire. In the background, Carl quietly stepped outside to manage police statements, while Mariana assisted with the hospital protocols. Ms. Beaumont hovered long enough to ensure everything was in order, then left the family to a moment of privacy. And so they remained. Amelia's mother, fragile but alive. Amelia, tearful yet glowing with relief. And Sebastian, kneeling at bedside, holding both mother and child's hands in his. The promise that had carried them through it all, to protect Amelia and rescue her mother, was fulfilled. Beyond that, a new promise sparked, to piece together the bonds of a family that had never before been whole. Amelia gazed at Sebastian with quiet reverence, as though still marveling that her wish had come true. She pressed closer to her mother, who offered Sebastian a trembling smile. "Thank you," she whispered, voice thick with gratitude, "for everything." He squeezed their hands gently, eyes bright with unshed tears. "You never have to thank me," he said, voice husky. "We're in this together now." High above the sleeping city, in a secluded suite made for healing, the three formed a tender circle of relief, exhaustion, and unspoken hope. Outside, the night sky stretched on, but within that room, new possibilities had dawned, ones in which Amelia would never be left alone again, and a woman's desperate journey to save her daughter would end not in fear, but in a family united at last. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen